Hey girly, just wanted to make you a quick little Ahri tutorial. Just 'cause like when I was first playing, I found it really helpful for me personally 'cause I really wanted to learn a champion, and so I just basically watched a lot of videos and that kind of helped me get better. So and then as far as runes go, just want to kind of briefly go over that. Always go with electrocute. Basically, anytime you do three abilities or attacks, it'll proc to like an adaptive damage. So as you continue throughout the game, that will continue to grow with it. So towards the end of the game, it'll be the strongest. And that'll work with any of your abilities, so your QWE as well as your like regular auto attack damage. And then for the next one, you can kind of choose between the three of them depending on who you're going to be going against. Like this one, for example, will heal you when you're doing damage to enemy champions. So if you are like worried about your health, that's a good one. Back to the other ones, but for the third row, I always do eyeball collection. It scales like as you get more kills throughout the game. For a total of 5, it'll give you like the maximum bonus, and it'll scale with your ability power. And then for the final row, I usually do Ultimate Hunter. It'll do like cooldown on your ultimate power, so your R. Even though it's like not that much, I figure that any cooldown is better than none. Um, you can also do the PAW one that'll just give you out of combat movement speed, but I usually go with Ultimate Hunter. And then going back to the other row, you can also do sudden impact, and basically anytime you do like a blink, a dash, a flash, or anything like that, anything that's like a gap closer or an escape, your next ability or attack after that will do bonus true damage. And that's really helpful, especially if you're going against like a lot of tank champions and you have a champion that you're playing yourself that has a dash. Like if I was going against a bunch of enemies who had like a bunch of like max health and everything, and we're going to be building a lot of armor and magic resist, I would choose that one just so I have a little extra something um, to kind of like help combat that. And then the last one is going to be cheap shot. And basically with that, anytime you use crowd control on somebody, it's going to do extra true damage to them as well. So it works well with Ahri's E because it's the charm. It'll like stop them from moving on their own. And then with that, it'll do extra damage. So if you do like Q, or sorry, if you do like your charm and then use your Q, it'll do extra bonus damage, which is helpful, like I said, against tanks. And then moving on to the blue side, I always do usually with Ahri mana flow ban. And the reason for that is because when I'm playing Ahri and like other mages that use mana, I don't typically buy items that will help me get mana over time. So if I use all my mana, that's pretty much it, and I won't have anything to like kind of regenerate it. It'll be super slow. Um, that's just the way I play because I like to go like full damage. Um, so with that one, it'll stack over time. Each time you hit an enemy champion with a cooldown, it'll give you an additional amount of maximum mana. So if you have like 400 maximum, you hit the champion, it'll add a certain amount, and it'll be like 425 or something like that. And as you continue doing that, I think it goes up to like 250. Once you hit the 250, then after that, you will get additional mana regeneration. And so that kind of helps me when I'm playing in my lane. That way I don't have to go back as often to restore my mana. Yeah. And then on the second row, I always go with Transcendence usually, just because it helps with your ability haste, and basically that takes time off of your abilities. You get more as you level up, and then once you hit the maximum level of level 11, anytime you kill a champion or assist with killing a champion, it'll reduce the remaining cooldown of your basic ability, so QWE, by 20 seconds. So if one of your abilities has a 10-second cooldown, you kill someone or get an assist, it goes down to 8 seconds instead. So it can help with refreshes, especially if you're playing like assassin champions who like do a lot of damage quickly. It kind of helps you like snowball in those fights. And then lastly, for summoner spells, I typically will run Ignite and Flash during mid lane. That's kind of like the typical build for a mid laner. But you can always take Heal, Barrier, Teleport, Ghost, depending on your playstyle. Like if you want to have more comfortability and you're worried about like dying more often, then definitely Barrier or Heal for your health and shield. And then Ghost can also help with movement to like get out, or you can even get Exhaust to like slow the enemy and also reduce their damage. That way you can get away. But yeah, up to you for that part. I always like Ignite though. And then, of course, when you get in the game, you have to buy stuff. And you can kind of decide what you want to buy based off the enemy team. Once you get more accustomed to stuff, you'll be able to see kind of like different builds and like reasons why you would want to get different items. Like if you're going against someone who is a known like poke champion and is going to do a lot of damage to you, they're ranged. Like if they're an ADC that went mid, like Caitlyn or something, they're just going to keep auto attacking you, and you're going to have to keep going back. So you might want to get like shield or something. Or if you're really confident, or you're playing somebody who doesn't use any mana like Katarina, you don't have really a reason to get Doran's Ring, so you might just get the book. I'm doing a voiceover. I literally forgot the name. We can get the book, and then that will build into something else instead of having to later sell the ring. So you kind of save some money there. But usually, if you're playing like a mage, you're gonna want to get Doran's Ring, just for the mana regeneration. It has like pretty much the same ability power. It's like a two different from the book thing. Um, Plus, it gives you extra health, and then you get mana regeneration like every 5 seconds or something like that. So I definitely recommend that. Don't forget your health pots and a ward. And then we're gonna go ahead and head into a mid lane. You start off with the three abilities, obviously you can choose from. Gonna want to start off with Q. Basically, this you've already played her, so you kind of already know. Throw an orb back and forth. On the way back, it does true damage, which is really helpful, especially going against tanks, like I've mentioned before. W is Foxfire, fires three different little shoot things, and it also gives you a movement speed that decays over time. E is a charm, lasts for 1.2 seconds. That increases as you level up, but it basically like stuns the enemy. Um, and then, like I said, we choose Q. That's going to be our first one, and then you can click Runes panel and kind of see how throughout the game, like your stuff will adapt and kind of grow. Like you can see when you finish the eyeball collection, it tells you how much you're going to have, and it'll tell you like your current status on where you are in the runes and like what level you're at and whatnot. And then when you like do the overview, it tells you how much you have altogether from them. And then next we'll look at how your ability power scales with your abilities. If you look here, this only takes 50% of your ability power. Right now we have 27. It does a base of 40. So if you take half of 27, that's like 13 and a half. They round up to 14. 40 plus 14 is 54, which is how they get that number. All of them are different, so you can see how they interact. Your E scales the highest. So I think it does 75%. So if you have like 100 ability power, it's going to add 75 damage to that your charm. And the way you look at those is you just hold the shift key and you hover over them, and that's how it brings up like the additional information for that. Ignite, you can see it does 70 true damage, and also applies grievous wounds. That 70 will like increase over the game when you're initially choosing it. In like the loading screen, you can see how much damage it does maximum. And then Grievous Wounds basically is like an anti-heal. So it's very helpful when you're going against tanks that have like a lot of health regen. When you use that, it like basically cuts their healing in half. Some champions have Grievous Wounds embedded in some of their abilities, and then also some items have it. So if you're ever going against a champion that seems like they're healing nonstop and you can't ever get them down, it's helpful to like know about Grievous Wounds and how that works. And then for the start of the laning phase, your main focus is going to be obviously, poking at the champion, trying to do damage to them. But also you really want to pay attention to farming minions because that's how you're going to get a lot of your money. As you can see, I'm kind of waiting until they get low enough to where I can hit them with one auto attack. If you look down at your like little character information bar, you can see how much damage you have. I have 53. If you left click on a minion, you can see how much health they have. So until you get comfortable with like the visual cues, you can just kind of like monitor them, and once they get to that 53 or below, you can hit them, and then you'll get the money for it. And it's really important to get the money because if they out farm you in minions and you guys both have 0 kills, they're going to have the advantage with having more items and essentially basically more damage. So definitely focus on that, and also get in hits whenever you can. I'm playing against a bot, and this is really aggressive. Typically, they're not going to be like that. But when you do poke them, and if you're able to get a big hit off, it'll force them to go back, and then they won't be able to farm as much, and you kind of like scare them off basically, which is helpful to win. And as you level up, you'll be able to upgrade your abilities to the next level. I typically focus on Q, that's going to be your main damage dealer, and then I go for W, and then I choose E. Even though E like looks like it does the most damage, the cooldowns on the other two are basically like half. So in the meantime, when you can get like one E off, you'd be able to get two of each of the others off. So um, and plus there are other benefits like your Q does true damage, and then your W can also give you a little bit of a movement boost. It's 40% decaying over like 2 seconds or something like that. So you can either use that to like walk up to the enemy faster, and you can also use it as an extra way to escape. So I just prefer to level up those two, but it's kind of like a decision up to you. But traditionally, that's kind of the way you would level them up. And then once you have enough money, or need to go back to the base for whatever reason and can buy things, I typically will go for this item. And the reason I do that is because um, once you level up, as long as you have that main part of the item, not the full item itself, but the one that like turns into it, every time you level up, it'll give you 20% of your maximum mana back over like 5 seconds, which helps you stay in the lane longer. That way you don't have to go back as often. So if you're running low, but then you level up, you get like 20% of your mana back, and then you can stay and fight longer and not have to lose time. And then, of course, we get to level 6, we get our ultimate, which is Spirit Rush. Every time you dash, you get 3 of them. It'll shoot out 3 Essence Bolts, which deal damage to nearby enemies. They do damage, of course. And then what's cool about this is basically anytime you get in a kill or an assist while you have your ultimate, like the window up, like the time countdown, anytime you get a kill or assist, it'll refresh one of them. So theoretically, while you're fighting, you start off with 3. You can get those 3 back, depending on how many kills and assists you get. Um, and then also, I forgot to mention your passive, which is the one before Q. It's Essence Theft, and your ultimate actually works with it. For Essence Theft, um, basically, if you kill minions or monsters, I think 8 or 9 of them, you end up getting health back. And it's the same thing for champions as well. You don't have to reach the number, but once you get a kill or assist, you'll get health back, and that scales over time as well. So it'll start off kind of low, but then further in the game, it definitely will add up. And when you do get the takedown, so like the killer assist, it also extends the time period of your ability by 10 seconds. And it gives you that extra recast. So kind of it's like endless, but not really, because obviously like there's only 5 enemy champions and people die. So, but it's cool. It'll help you get in and out of fights. So you start off with 3. You can use one to dash into the fight, another one to deal additional damage, and then you can also use your last one to get out of the fight if things are looking sketchy. Um, and then while you're out of the fight, within that time frame, if somebody else gets a kill and you get an assist on it, you'll get that dash back, and then you can go back in or keep escaping basically. And now for the combo. Obviously, you can use any you know abilities whenever you want. But typically each champion has like a combo that does like the most amount of damage in like the shortest amount of time basically. And for Ahri, that's going to be your E, Q, and W. Um, And the reason for that is because you use your E to charm, which essentially like stuns the enemy, has them walk towards you for like a little under 2 seconds, and then in that time period you can Q them, which leaves enough time for the Q to go through the champion and back, so you get the double damage, and then your W will just go off at the same time, and that does the maximum amount of damage. It also procs your electrocute. Um, to help with that extra damage as well. And then, of course, you can chase them down with your R to finish them off. Your combo will usually get them low enough to where you can go in on some of the squishier champions. Should get them usually to like about half health, especially if you have other items that have extra damage effects, and then you can just follow up with your R. Yeah. And then for the build, typically there are standard items that you'll get pretty much with every champion, but depending on the enemy team or how you've been doing, like if you've been dying a lot or dominating, you might want to get different items. So it kind of just depends, and you'll end up learning, like what to do in certain situations depending on what the game is looking like for you. So obviously, people will get boots. With Ahri, she's ability power, so typically you'll run Sorcerer Shoes. It'll give you additional magic penetration. So if they have any magic resist, like if they have 30 magic resist, this will take 12 off, and they'll only have 18 left. And basically, it makes your abilities do more damage. And then, like I said, depending on the team, you might have to get different boots depending on the situation. Plated steel caps if the enemy team is like full attack damage and you're just getting like shit on by somebody who's using like auto attacks on you. You'll want to get plated steel caps. It reduces auto attacks and also gives you armor just to kind of help you give you that extra protection. Same thing with Mercury Treads, except for with magic resist. The other thing about this is it also gives you 30% tenacity. So if they're using like a bunch of snares and shit on you, the snares won't last as long as, and you can get away a little bit quicker. But honestly, it's not that much noticeable. But if you're really getting shit on, you'll want those. Boots of Swiftness, that also can help with slows, reducing it by 25%. Also gives you a higher base one. But yeah, just kind of depending on the situation, you're going to want to get different boots. Um, if you want your abilities to get cooled down a little bit faster, you might want these boots. Just depending on your playstyle, it can also reduce the summoner spell haste. So, like your ignite and flash, it'll take 10 haste off, which, like I said, isn't a whole lot. But anything can kind of help. And then Ahri, of course, is an ability power champion. Some of them have a mixture of ability power and attack damage, but she is full AP. So specifically for her, um, I recommend getting this as like your first item. And the main reason for that, I just burped. I don't know if you heard that. So sorry. Um, is because anytime you level up, it's gonna give you 20% of your maximum mana back over like a couple seconds. So when you're in the lane, if you're low on mana, you can stay longer if you're like about to level up because then you get the mana back and you don't have to go back. And then that'll turn into Luden's Companion. And with this one, it's kind of helpful and it does more damage. Basically, anytime you use one of your ability power items or use one of your abilities, so QWER, it also sends off 6 shots at the same time once you like accumulate them. So if you use like your Q, but the Q doesn't hit the champion and it hits like a minion, it'll actually bounce off and do like 20 damage or something. It also works in team fights, so if you hit one champion, it'll also do damage to the surrounding champions. Depending on how many charges of the item you have. Like if you only have one charge, it'll only send off like one little shot, but if you have the full 6, it'll bounce off to the rest of the team. And then for my next item, I will usually pick up Storm Surge. I get this on a lot of my ability power champions, especially Katarina, because this doesn't give you any extra mana. It does a lot of ability power. It has magic penetration. It also gives you movement speed. And the best part about this is, especially when you have an assassin champion who's doing like a lot of damage and has like a good combo, if you do 25% of the enemy's maximum health within 2.5 seconds, you will get a 25% movement speed boost for a second and a half, and then also after that period, um, it'll do additional magic damage to them. So that'll scale with your ability power. So if you do 25% of their health, after 2 seconds, it'll basically like explode and do an additional damage amount. Typically, it's like anywhere between like 70 and like 300, depending on how much ability power you have. And it works really well with electrocute as well, because if you use your combo and you get them down to like half health, let's say they have like 600 health left, the electrocute will go off, which does usually like over 100 and something at your full build. That'll knock it down, and then you have the squall go off, which does additional extra damage. Plus, if you have ignite as well, and it's like maxed out, it does like 200 and something true damage. That like completely knocks their health down. So it's like basically having like extra abilities, which is why I build it. And those are kind of like the main items I will typically always build. But for the rest of the items, it'll kind of just depend on how you're doing and what the anime team looks like. Like for example, if you're doing really well, I recommend Shadow Flame. Gives you a shit ton more ability power, magic penetration, and then also if you hit someone while they're 40% or below health, and let's say for example you'd normally hit them for like 100 damage, if they are under that marker, it'll do 120 damage instead. So it really can help kill like squishy enemies, and just finish people off and kind of make them go bye bye, which is so much fun. And then next, if you're going against a team that's like full attack damage, or you're just going against someone who's doing like a lot of attack damage to you, and they're hitting you with a lot of auto attacks, it might be helpful to get Zonu's Hourglass. It has a lot of ability power, but it also gives you armor, so they're not going to be doing as much damage to you. And then the best part is the active of it, the stasis. This will get put in your inventory, and it'll be assigned to a number, and when you click that number it'll activate it, and it makes you like invincible, and you also can't do anything for 2.5 seconds. So like if you are trying to escape and your flash is on like a 3 second cooldown, you can use this really quick, and it'll basically make it to after you're unfrozen that you can use your flash again. Same with abilities. um, like for example, when you're going against Fizz, if Fizz uses his ultimate on you, it doesn't go off right away. Like the shark like swims around you and then it jumps up. If he ults you and then you're walking, you can use this, and then his ult will jump up, but it won't do any damage to you. So it basically makes you invincible, which is awesome. And then the next item, Banshee's Veil, it's like the same thing except for with magic resist or like ability power. You don't have any stasis, but essentially you'll get a spell shield that regenerates over time, to where the next um, enemy attack, well, the next enemy ability has to be one of their abilities. It won't do anything to you. So, like, if you have it and a Lux tries to snare you, it won't actually snare you because you have the shield on. And then next item would be like Moralicon. It does grievous wounds. I kind of mentioned that before, like Ignite does. If you're going against somebody who has a lot of health regeneration, this can be super beneficial. It applies 40% wounds to them, so they're gonna not have as effective healing. It also gives you ability pace, 75 ability power. But the grievous wounds is really helpful against people like Garen and other tanks, who you have trouble kind of chipping down. And then the other items, kind of just depends on your situation. Rylai's Crystal Scepter, this does additional slowing to them, so all of your abilities will slow them. Like if you're getting ganked a lot by the jungle, you might want this as an extra way for you to escape. There's also Leandries. This is also good against tanks, so it does max health damage over time. So your ability will damage them, and then it'll do like burn damage over time. It can kind of help knock them down more as well.